Yeah, look, welcome everyone for coming along. I'm just going to give I suppose, a general broad overview of the BSc Accounting program, I suppose, where it stands at the moment, and I suppose just to talk about, I suppose, the key features of it, and I suppose why hopefully you might be interested in coming along and becoming a student on the degree program and focusing your next stage of your career in UCC and on the program. It's a 4-year degree program, and there is, I suppose, various features to it which are, I suppose, very much designed around, I suppose, building a successful career in accounting. I suppose one of the key bits of the program is that I suppose we kind of say it's a long-established program. It's there since the early 90s, and it is obviously there's a lot of very successful graduates after coming out of the program, and they have excelled and have taken on very senior roles in accounting. So I suppose there's a core kind of part of the program where we cover all the core accounting, tax, auditing kind of subjects that you would expect in an accounting degree. But I suppose the UCC degree is distinct in the sense that it also gives you a fast tracks your career to qualify as a professional accountant. You have professional exemptions from the Chartered Accountants Ireland's exams, CAP 1 and 2 of the CAP 2 exams. So that means that the amount of exams you're doing when you enter into the workplace and to complete your training as a chartered accountant are greatly reduced. It's the maximum exemptions, in fact, you'll get from Chartered Accountants Ireland of any of the UCC degrees. So I think that's kind of a benefit of the program. We have a kind of a focus on that all the time on the program, of exemptions and professional exam exemptions as you go on in your studies. That's a key part of the program. Another key part of the program that kind of helps developing that successful career is we very much focus, of course, on employers and what they're looking for. So inbuilt into the program is a 6-month paid work experience component in the third year. So that is obviously a key part of the degree program for students. They get to develop their professional knowledge, their professional skills. It's the experiential learning part, and it kind of helps students as well to focus their minds regarding what kind of career they want. Because I'm sure, as some of our panel will talk to today, sometimes accounting is kind of conceived as a kind of a very maybe somewhat narrow kind of area, but we'll talk today about the fact that you can have your hands in many different places, and the career can really take you anywhere in the business world. So I think the degree kind of speaks to that as well, because another key feature of the degree, despite on top of the paid work experience and the professional exam exemptions, is the degree also has some diversity in it. We would actually call it a kind of a tailored business degree, because there are elective module choices, an extensive range of them for students in the second year and in the final fourth year of the degree. And that allows them to study things like entrepreneurial startups, different types of subjects around change management and economics of change and all that. So there are those kind of elective modules. And I think students, when they come back from the paid work placement at the end of their third year of the program, they basically get a chance, I think, to really think about what they want out of their career when they go into the fourth year, and it gets them to focus down and kind of select modules perhaps which they're particularly interested in based on the skills and experience they have gained on their professional work placement. Another key kind of part of the program, I guess, is, and again, the employer focus. So we have very close networks and ties with the big four accounting firms, and many other employers, and I suppose that allows us, I suppose, throughout the degree to have employer involvement, be it in how the degree is developed, or also in guest lectures, and even some career presentations as well. So I think the degree kind of obviously has its core academic kind of focus, but also very much is focused on what's happening in accounting and what employers are looking for, and has very much built-in employer input into all stages of the program. Mike, I think I'm trying to think of other bits that
Yeah,
we might
look,
add.
the key thing here is we're going to be having a very open panel discussion where we've said we're going to do this in a very organic fashion, which basically means if we make a mess of it, it's completely on us. We've no one else to blame. One of the things, I guess, is, look, it's tricky. People who are thinking of doing accounting or whatever they're doing they're thinking of doing in college, it's a tough decision. People have never had more information at their disposal, which actually causes as much problems. One of the things that I've personally liked myself is where you can actually get honest feedback or information from people about who've been the path that you're thinking of looking at, because obviously we can direct you towards our website, we can direct you towards social media, but again, we want to kind of have this panel discussion that is basically talking about the ins and outs. I suppose one of the things is accounting is changing. It's changing with the world, with environment, with technology. We keep up to speed in that quite well, where we've got our finger on the pulse of what changes need to happen and what kind of is attracting students. And again, guys, for any kind of students who are on today, just please, on the Q&A that Ian has kind of set up there, fire in anything you want, because we're more than happy to address any question that comes in. At the end of the day, we'd like you to make the best decision you can about what program to do. We'd like that you'd pick the accounting degree, but we really do want to know that when you are making a decision, you're making the best decision for yourself at the end of the day. Okay, so I'm going to kick off, and just for a quick off, I'm just going to ask the panel just to introduce themselves and basically your name and what you're currently doing. So Michael, I'll kickstart with you there, if that's okay.
Yeah. Look, thanks for the opportunity, Mike. First and foremost, delighted to be here. So I am currently an assistant manager with Deloitte. I am in the financial services department, primarily working in investment management. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
No, perfect. And then we go to Isabel.
Hi guys, my name is Isabel Clinton, and I'm just after starting my graduate role in EY Cork, working in the tax department. So I'm there about, I'd say, 2.5 months now. So not long out of UCC.
So you could still remember all the good times, So
Yeah.
It's good from that perspective. And then I come to Becky.
Hi guys, so my name's Becky. I'm in my 3rd year of my grad role, and I'm working in PwC in Cork in the tax department as well, actually.
Yeah, and then Becky, as well, as I understand it, you're also kind of heavily involved with the Chartered Accountants Society in Ireland, Student Society in Ireland. So you might be able to kind of speak a bit about that as we go along as well, and kind of how Cork is trying to rule the rest of the country and all that, as we normally do. And then finally, I'll come to Carmel.
Yeah, thanks again for inviting me to speak, Mike. So my name is Carmel Casey, and I'm from Glenroy in County Cork. I'm currently working as a 3rd year associate in the audit department at KPMG's Cork office. I've recently completed my professional exams, which has been a huge milestone in my career.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No. And we'll talk more about how and where you did those exams in a while as well, Carmel, so it was equally impressive when we were chatting previously. So
Exactly.
I look forward to kind of bringing that up again with you.
Yeah.
So look, one of the things I'd kind of say, and again, Michael, we've talked about this before, was, we had a kind of bit of a laugh about it the last time we spoke. Like, what initially drew you to the BSc Accounting? And it's I suppose it's a few years earlier than everyone else. Like, so kind of maybe just give a thoughts on that.
Yeah, going all the way back to 2017 feels like a lifetime ago. Look, to be totally honest, I think a session like this would have been massive for me going back. I think this is so helpful for everyone. But going back, I would have had a flair for numbers. My sister is an accountant, and kind of went down her path, I suppose. Did a week in TY with her, kind of enjoyed it. Again, wasn't sure. Also did a week in, what else did I do a week in? Did a week in a solicitor's firm, but then ultimately chose the numbers. And yeah, like I did accountancy. I actually did it outside of school in the school I was in, but again, loved it. And then ultimately, I think why I chose BSc Accounting was probably just I liked the fact it was just accountancy, and then with that, then bringing purely accounting, and then with that bringing kind of the exemptions that came with it, and then that kind of feeding into the Big Four as well, and kind of how the Big Four, a lot of your obviously graduates go into the Big Four, which is obviously key for me. So they're kind of the main reasons.
Yeah. And speaking, I suppose, kind of linking in then with the exemptions, and so it will say, Carmel, kind of coming to you, I suppose, what initially drew you to the program, and I suppose added to that then, would the exemptions have been a big factor in that for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I suppose for me, accounting was my favorite subject in school. I kind of went to the UCC Open Day and went to the talk on BSc Accounting. Then it got the ball rolling about exemptions. I would have known nothing about exemptions, what they were, anything like that. So I realised that if I did BSc Accounting, I would be exempt from the first round of Cap 1s. So I just have the Cap 2s and the FEs complete then. So it just made life easier. Really, now they're complete, juggling work and study at the same time.
Yeah, because one of the things at the moment is, look, the professional accounting exemptions, they are a huge draw to the program. And at the moment, we are working on getting the maximum number of exemptions that you can possibly get, which will be full cap 1 and full cap 2. And that's a work in progress. And obviously, because it's not our choice, it's a regulatory oversight in it. It's something we're aiming at, because I would kind of linking with the fact of maybe Becky, I guess, from your perspective and what you've seen, it's only sometimes when you talk to guys outside of Cork do you mainly realise like the strength of the work you did while you were at UCC. And I know I would have said it to you when I was kind of lecturing you and stuff like that guys tended to be held in high regard. Did you see any evidence of that yourself while you were doing your training contract, Becky?
Yeah, I think definitely. And I think where I saw it the most is through kind of, as you said, like I'm very heavily involved with the student society, and that runs across the whole country. So I kind of will be talking to a lot of people from all different counties, all different backgrounds, who've come from all different colleges. And like the UCC degree is held in a really, really high regard, or the usual kind of when we were going to the exams, even when I was talking to people from Limerick, Galway, Dublin, who I would know from work and from the extracurriculars, it was all, oh, but you'll be flying it. You've a great background. Sure. And like I used my college notes in my professional exams. And I think it is something that across the country, the UCC degree is held in a very, very high respect. And I've noticed that very much so since entering work, more so than even when I was in college. I think it was something that working with people from Dublin, Limerick offices, it's something that kind of is constantly said to you, like the minute you say you're a UCC grad, there is that level of like very high esteem about your background.
Yeah, and no, we do see that in terms of we obviously get fed that back from employers as well, not just in the Cork hinterland, but particularly Dublin a lot, like that they're held in right regard, as much as they'd hate to admit that, but it does ring true. And I suppose then, like, Isabel, coming to you then, like, look, maybe pushing by why you chose the program, but was there anything kind of that was different when you started university about that your expectations were slightly, what actually the reality was slightly different in your expectations, or didn't match it? Or what did you find was like the biggest change for you, the unexpected things that popped up when you started the program?
I think, to be honest, it's like if you want, if in school you'd be kind of asking questions, whatever, it's very easy. You're in a small class size. Like it is a bit more daunting in college. You kind of have to seek that out more. Like you have to kind of approach the lecturer. But if you just kind of put the hand up, it is worth it in the end. Like they are willing to help you if you kind of put the hand up and ask for help.
Yeah, and that's something people don't fully, I think guys who are looking at coming to UCC don't fully appreciate what we're doing there, because some people are like, again, anyone that deals with me, they're more than welcome to contact me, but I'm not, and myself and Jamie both be like this, where we will set time apart for anyone and we'll spend as long as we can with you. But we're not going to go looking for you either. Do you know what I mean? So it's, I always kind of joke with people like, I'm not sitting in my office just waiting for someone to kind of come in and have a chat with me. But what people forget then is like that autonomy that you develop in UCC, you learn to stand on your own 2 feet. Michael, coming back to kind of like you're gone into a more senior role now, but I guess would you see that reflected, that soft kind of, not, I hate saying the soft, but that professional skill of, yes, while you're in university, it's quite tough. You're kind of landed on your own to some respects, but it pays off in the long term then, really, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, like 100%. Because when I first went to UC, like I obviously lived at home for all my life and all that, and went down then on myself 2 hours from home, and then you're kind of fighting your own background, and you get into it, what you get out of it, what you put into it, really is what I would say. And it's the same when it comes to working in Deloitte. Like it's, I suppose, when you're doing on the audit, if you come across problems, like the best solution is the best answer is to kind of find a solution before you go to your manager or whatever the case is. And I think kind of fighting your own battles in college and like not having someone standing over you kind of micromanaging is key to that. I think it all feeds into it. And I think, as I said, just having that pure drive and, as I said, putting everything into it is what really help you the most and help you get what you need to get out of it.
And Isabel, as the most kind of recent graduate, then I suppose how manageable do you think the workload is for students? Because I know, chatting to a couple of fourth year students at the moment, our current final year students are very, very good at working together. It's a really nice thing. They're very competitive with each other in a way, but in other ways, then they want to work together. And I see them going off to the library together and kind of working on things. So how do you think, in terms of kind of giving an honest appraisal of the workload and how students typically manage it, what would you be saying to prospective students?
I think definitely as you go on in the course, like you do learn how to manage your time, that kind of thing. But I think what really made it more manageable was you will find your people in the course, like the course is relatively small, not being afraid to put yourself out there, because then you can kind of bounce things off each other. And I find that does help the work kind of feel a lot more manageable. Definitely, that's what I found anyways.
Definitely. And one of the things there, and just to cut across, there's some really good questions coming in. So anyone who's answered the questions, we're going to leave them all for the end when we'll just get through kind of our chit chat first. And I can already see there's some really nice questions popping in. So guys, keep those questions coming in and we appreciate it very much. I suppose I'd almost saying, if you can kind of think back to your time in college, what did you find the most challenging aspect? And kind of similar, did you learn to address that as time went on? Is it something that college teaches you, or what would your thoughts be on that?
I think for me, and Mike, you'll know well about many discussions we've had on this, I always had 101 extracurriculars going on, and I still tried to match doing 100 at everything with all my extracurriculars. So I played a lot of sport, I played hockey, I danced, I was involved in every student society or committee that I could be involved in, but then I still obviously wanted to do well academically. So I think for me, it was what now is my work-life balance. At the time in college was, how do I manage my college work with my sport, which at the time was at quite a high level, and then also having a social life. And I think it's striking that balance and again, just working out how to do that during college. Then when you start working, the change isn't a huge shock to the system. And I think that was definitely one of the most challenging things. Obviously, the coursework is hard. You get used to that. But I think for me, it was managing everything.
Yeah, no, and it's obviously we talked about this a good bit, and yeah, as I said, when you described some of your activities, Becky, it was something we talked a good bit about, but also we did recognize that, you need a certain level of performance in university, but oftentimes you have to make room for other things as well. It's not all about the study and trying to get top marks. And in fact, we'd always be encouraging people to have a balanced lifestyle, because at the end of the day, we've seen people going through who, let's say, they might have got lower overall marks in the program, but then they're involved in kind of sports. They're doing, at a high level, they're doing a lot of work that they're trying to fund themselves through college. And again, once you come out of the university experience, you realize that this whole skill set will stand to you. So it's, again, we do try and promote that on the course, that we're saying to guys, look, you do need to do a certain level of work, but kind of getting into this mentality of, I need to get as high scores as possible, it can be very tough to kind of do that, And I suppose then the next kind of question I would come on then, saying, Carmel, that from the degree and kind of summing up, what skills did you take immediately from the degree, do you think, into KPMG when you started working there? What did you think allowed you to hit the ground running compared to maybe other people?
I suppose one of the most valuable skills anyway that we learned from BSc Accounting was the ability to think critically and work through complex problems. The course would have helped me to develop strong time management and organizational skills, which have been essential while balancing work and study during my training contract. And on top of that, I suppose the element of group projects and presentations, they gave me the confidence in communicating clearly and work as part of a team, which is something I rely on every day in the professional setting. So overall, the degree definitely gave me a strong foundation, both technically and personally.
Yeah, and it's something we work on an awful lot, is trying to make sure like that when you go into the kind of workplace that you're not just kind of, you're getting something that's completely different. You're almost finding something that you're ready to start to hit the ground running when you come in. And I suppose, Michael, coming back to you on that, then, like I would say, like if you can recall, the transition to full-time work for you, like say, what surprised you most when you went into Deloitte first, like as a student? Was there anything that kind of surprised you, or that you found it most difficult, or the most easy transition compared to others?
It's a good question. I suppose when I started working, it's just like, well, not having the summers to study, the study leave we get them with them was exceptional. And again, going back into exams again, like the Cap 2s, the FEs they are tough. I'd love to have the exemptions that you're offering now, Mike. I think they're phenomenal. But I think starting work, it is like they're long hours. Like, like there's no point kidding you. Like they're all long, especially with any of the big four. It's long hours, but like they're really supportive. And I think having BSc Accounting as the background is really important in that. I've started doing interviews recently for co-op roles and internship roles, and one of the things we look out for is what course they did, and BSc Accounting always stands out as number one, for me anyway. And I noticed the same with other managers who've come through it, because we know what it offers, and I can imagine it's the same with the other big four. So it's a great start to have, and that's just something I've noticed in my management role so far.
And I suppose then when you see, just sticking with that, and like obviously we're not going to talk too much about the interview process, but like when you see guys coming in at the moment, what kind of things stand out? Not necessarily things that Deloitte is looking for, but for you personally, you're saying, look, they have the accounting degree. You can kind of, you can put it, you put a lot of confidence straight away on that.
Absolutely.
But even just moving aside for that for a brief second, what kind of other things tend to stand out for you on a CV at the moment for people?
Well, certainly, like as Becky mentioned, I think the extracurriculars is very important. Like, whether be it sports, be it anything, debating, anything like that. And I think just people being themselves is a huge thing, because like we're not going to ask you loads of technical questions in any of those interviews that you're going to undertake, because you'll have interviews sooner than you think when you go into BSc Accounting, because I know you promote the internships and you promote co-op as well. You obviously offer the 6-month or 9-month co-op depending. But you will have interviews sooner than you think. And I think the biggest thing I could say to anyone is just be yourself, because especially in Deloitte, we're just having a chat. We want to get to know you as the person, because your CV is laid out in front of us. We can see the information on that. We can see your results. And obviously when you have BSc Accounting, it definitely helps, and it's a good start. But as I would say, be yourself, because we're looking to add people here who can make a difference, and people who get on great with everyone socially and both in the workplace and professional setting. Yeah, that's just biggest piece of advice I'd give.
And I suppose Isabel, as the most recent graduate alumni we have on the panel, I suppose, how has the transition gone for you in EY from now? One of the things Isabel did the accounting degree, but then she also did the accounting masters for a year, and Becky did that as well. But I suppose the transition to work, Isabel, how's it gone for you, and anything kind of that stuck out so far for you?
To be honest, it's gone quite well. I think definitely having, like both the BSc Accounting and the Masters, like even if I hadn't done the Masters, like the BSc Accounting gives you such like a good foundation on like a broad range of things. So I really think that it kind of helps build your confidence in like your ability to like do well at work and kind of approach your work and stuff. Because like it's obviously very daunting going into work and thinking, oh my God, like I don't know how to do anything, but like it just kind of, you're able to then kind of try and come up with solutions, bring them to the manager. Definitely confidence wise, because we just, even compared to other grads that started like the BSc Accounting, like we covered just so much more kind of material, and it just kind of gives you a good base across all different subjects, definitely.
And it is a thing, look, if you can hit the ground running, there is comparisons going on between people. And if if you've done more and if you're in a better starting position, it can only help you, And I suppose while, Becky, coming to you then in terms of kind of like the degree shaping your career direction, it's kind of a question I wrote, and now I'm kind of wondering what I meant by it, because I'm kind of going, while you're doing the degree, you're still really green in terms of what you might end up doing. And I think that's probably the point I was trying to say. It's almost like talking about people who do the degree and that they mightn't actually even think of going down the accounting route. They might go down something else, but that people probably put a bit too much weight on what do they need to do after college while they're in it. Like it's not as big a decision as what people make, I think. What do you think of that, Becky?
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. I think it's very easy to kind of think you have to have everything planned out, and it's very easy to kind of get sucked into that, but you are still, as you said, like you're so green. And I think it's definitely something for me. I did my 6 month placement and then I actually went back to the same team. So I got offered my graduate role from having done my placement. So I suppose that's arguably one of the main ways that it did shape my career, because I knew where I was going after. But even now, kind of coming towards the end of my graduate role, the horizon is huge for where you can go. And again, so much of that does come back to the time you spend in college, your training, you're doing the exams. You have so many options. And I think it's something that I'm 3 years into my job and still thinking I have so many career options ahead of me. And it's something that I almost had to kind of reel myself back in when I realized, oh my God, I'm in the last year of my training contract. What am I going to? It's something that you'll still be thinking after college. So I think definitely it's so easy when you're in college to get caught up in it. But I think there's never any rush with it. And like you do kind of, as you're going through as well, you realize it's so much more important to kind of be in the present and just enjoy it and just see where it can take you. And then you will find your niche. You'll find where you kind of want to go the further on you get.
One of the things there when I was kind of just advertising this event on LinkedIn through my own network, and it was one of the things, the word that kept popping up, and I don't know whether people just saw it and just kind of repeated it, but passport kept coming up, and like the flexibility. And Michael, I guess one of the things is, you decided to stay on in Deloitte for after the training contract, but I guess talking about yourself and what made you make that decision, number one, but number two, I can imagine that you, like myself and Jamie, know past colleagues and friends of yours that have gone on to do incredibly varied things, but using the flexibility of their qualification.
Yeah, 100%. So first of all, I stayed on. Well, first of all, I love Deloitte. I think I've nothing bad to say about them. They were just really, really good firm, really supportive throughout the contract. I also stayed on. So I moved home. I'm from Kerry. I lived in Cork for 8 years. I moved home in April, just before I finished my contract, and they offer really good flexibility for me because I'm in the financial services department. So they offer really good flexibility. So I can come down to Cork once a week, up to Dublin when I'm needed, kind of probably once or twice a month as well. So that was definitely a key factor. And a lot of my friends, since I'm still, first of all, some of my best friends for life are from BSc Accounting, which is something that is also outside of the actual technical ability you get from it and everything else that comes with it. Like that's a massive part of it as well. But some of them are gone to Australia, so the degree obviously travels and all of your exemptions and all of the Cap 1s, Cap 2s, your chartered exams travel as well. Some of them are gone to London into different financial reporting roles. Some of them are still in practice like myself in KPMG as well and PwC. So yeah, like you can do anything. You can go into, I know some people who've gone into smaller practices, smaller industries, like even like I suppose options for myself down the line would be somewhere in Kerry, like smaller practices, but for the moment I'm happy to stay put anyway with them for the moment.
Personally, the point I would always make to people is, if you ask me the one reason that I ever became a chartered accountant, it was the flexibility argument, where I wanted the ability, whether I chose it or not, I wanted the options, because my own background is in engineering, and I originally did a degree in engineering and worked as an engineer, and didn't realize that the company I worked with was the only place in the country that I could be employed, which kind of freaked me out at the time. And I realized that the flexibility was a lot more important to me. And I do think that's a huge kind of aspect of it. And Carmel, I know kind of, you could say that you're going to stay in KPMG and all the rest of it, that you're happy to be working there. But I guess you're probably thinking right now about where you're going to go next and kind of what you're thinking of doing, I guess, and whether it's going to be kind of what kind of factors you're going to build in. And I suppose just to kind of give people like the breadth of things that you could potentially do, could you maybe talk about that?
Yeah, so I suppose that is the burning question for me at the moment. and you're not the first person to ask me this week. But yeah, like there's so many options, like even like within KPMG, obviously like can stay on and work my way up or whatever. But then there's also opportunity like to go abroad with KPMG or without them. Secondment, I could go into industry. There's actually nearly too many options. So yeah, it's hard to narrow down and see what will suit me best. So I can always go back to farming too if none of it suits me anyway. So
Exactly. And like one of the things I often get is people kind of coming back to Becky's point that where I tend to actually have most conversations with alumni is when they become a chartered accountant and they now have an absolute kind of they've an open card. And you know, part of their biggest problems is the options, because they can go try other degree programs. They might struggle to kind of get, you know, jobs, or there might be very specific places they can work, whereas we've got guys that talk about going to America, we've got guys that talk about going to Australia, Asia, and they talk about it as if they're just going up to Dublin to get a new job. As you said, there's people who go for large accounting practice, they stay in large accounting practice like Michael has, they move to smaller accounting practices, they start their own practice, they work in large industry companies. There's a massive variation of, you know, roles that comes out. And I suppose, Becky, the same kind of question in terms of, you know, maybe what people ahead of you have gone to, and you're maybe just mostly not, or just to change the question a bit, instead of talking about what you might do yourself, like that even the people that are just ahead of you, what have they maybe gone on to do, including staying where they in the firm or moving on to different opportunities?
Yeah, so I think even the intake directly above me, who would have gone in just 1 year ahead of me, within the last year, I've had friends who would have been in that intake who have just moved offices within PwC. So they might have moved from Dublin to Cork, or Cork to Dublin, or Dublin to Limerick, things like that. Or I have friends who have gone to London. I have a friend who's gone working with the Mercedes team, so the F1 team, and they're now on the accounting team with them, so they're gone working there. I have friends who are gone to Australia. I have people who've kind of pivoted their career away from kind of the pure accounting practice and kind of gone into the more kind of financial advisory roles and taken up different roles within kind of insurance companies, but on the accounts teams, things like that. So many different things I've seen in the like 2 or 3 years ahead of me, and the options are crazy. Like when I see people and they're all different parts of the world. They're in London, Australia are the big ones. Some people are out in like Dubai. I have friends who have gone to Switzerland. So a little bit everywhere, which is, you'd be delighted for them. It's insane to see your friends going everywhere around the
Yeah.
world. Like you miss them. But it's
Yeah.
definitely, even for myself, knowing like the options are so great. Or like what Michael was saying, like I'm really happy where I am currently, but I know even if I wanted to go to Dublin for 2 years, that could be an option if I want to stay with the same firm. Or like I've seen that happen as well, where people are saying, no, not ready to travel the world just yet. I'll go from Dublin to Cork and I'll go see what it's like in the real capital for a couple of years. Things like that.
Yeah. And I even know from someone, a past alumni, who wanted to kind of to work on more kind of like, I suppose, local kind of accounting and start
Yeah.
their own practice. They had a farming background themselves and they wanted to kind of keep close to that and work more with kind of one-to-one with small businesses. And again, they went from the accounting degree, they worked in a large firm, switched back to a small one. In other industries, that would just be unheard of. It would be not able to do it. I think in our profession, it's something that is very doable. That flexibility to switch is always so big. And I suppose, you know, Mike, we're coming to the end of the questions before we go to the questions that are coming in. But I suppose I'm kind of chuckling away now to saying, like, look, like, Michael, if you could go back to Leaving Cert and have a chat with yourself, what would you say?
What would I say? I'd probably say you made a good decision in what you did, but I'd also say let's just work as hard as you possibly can for the students you're doing exams in 6 months' time. Just work as hard as you possibly can and just don't leave any stone unturned, because at the end of the day you don't want to have any regrets. Yeah, that is the main piece of advice I'd say.
And it does all turn out in the end, because, Michael, we
does,
talked
it does.
before about, look, we always say there's a million and one things you could potentially end up doing. There's loads of different jobs and professions, but as you said, Michael, like you're always kind of no regrets, like, is one of the things that you're pretty strong on. And I suppose I would also kind of go flick the question a small bit to Isabel and just kind of say, look, for someone who's considering studying accounting at UCC, like, what would be your one big selling point? And it might be something we've mentioned already, but for you personally, what would you say is, how would you sell it to someone?
I really think that the work placement is the standout. For me anyway, it was the standout, because I was kind of between a couple of different courses where, like, I was probably going to end up doing accounting anyways, but the kind of differing factor for me was the work placement, because I really liked the kind of clear pathway to a job, and that kind of, it sets you up for after college, and it kind of just takes that stress out of it. Obviously the exemptions were a huge thing as well, but I think for me the main selling point was placement, because, like, I learned so much on placement, and it really helped me then in college when I went back to kind of see how the material you're learning in college actually applies to the job. And it definitely helps you then when you're studying in final year, when you kind of go back after placement.
It's a really good point, because myself and Jamie noticed this an awful lot, where people study until third year, then they go on a paid work placement for 6 months in the second half of third year, and they just come back with a different focus. I mean, they now finally, it's a great transition period, as in, before you start studying for your final year, you've got this work experience, people just become sharper, and we just see that, and it is a huge component of the course. And what we're very proud of is we've got an unbelievable workplace manager, Aileen Waterman, who just makes, great connections with the she keeps us tied in with firms and industries. Very, very hardworking, and kind of to make sure that the students get the best response, and, like, it's something that we're very proud of. I suppose, Carmel, if I could say to you, to kind of, again, your advice for someone studying in accounting at UCC, like, what would you sell from your experience? What would you say, what one point would you sell them on, do you think, if you were making it?
Yeah, again, just obviously the placement is a massive one, like you've already said. But again, it's just how many doors it opens and how wide the course is. Like saying again, like I thought going into it would just be like pen and paper, but, like, we touch on tax, economics, business information systems. You just learn so much. And just to say as well, a piece of advice: don't be afraid to ask questions and get involved. The course can be challenging at times, but the lecturers are approachable, and your classmates will likely become some of your closest friends.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point. And for Becky, then I suppose we'd come back to, if you could go back to Leaving Cert and give yourself a small bit of advice, Becky, what do you think that would have been, or what does it look like, or is there nothing you can really say? It's just a case of, going on to it.
I do think, for me, the one piece of advice I wish someone had given me at the time, which I will give, is just trust your gut. Like, work hard and just trust your gut. I think even when it came to my actual, like, my CAO and choosing accounting, I remember when I first filled it out and accounting was number one. The amount of times I flip-flopped between about 4 different courses, and then literally the day the CAO closed, I went back to accounting. And I think it's just trust your gut. You know what's right for yourself, and if you've, like, a natural, like, the fact that you're on the call today already as a student kind of thinking maybe this could be for me is already a step in the right direction. So I think trust your gut and just work really hard. You don't want to have any regrets, and then just get in the door to college, and then you can have fun.
And in pure accounting timing, I see one of our current students, David Feely, has just joined. David, we could, as I said, sorry, there was a bit of a mix-up with kind of bits and pieces, but thanks for coming on. I tell you, I've 3 questions, David, because I'll introduce you. You're currently a very hardworking 4th-year student. Said you're doing well in my subject anyway, so I assume you're doing well kind of everywhere else. David, I suppose life in the program so far, one of the things I just want to come back, it's one of the questions people are wondering about is the workload manageability. And one of the things that I said that I'm impressed about the current 4th years is you're a competitive bunch, but that you kind of tend to be really good at working together. I suppose if you want to talk about the manageability of the workload, number one, And number two, then just like how do you feel that's going this year with working together and bits and pieces like that?
Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm so sorry. I got the time wrong. As you can tell, I'm kind of doing a lot of things at the moment, so sorry about that. But yeah, as Mike said, the workload is very manageable, I think. So I'm doing 5 modules this semester and 7 next semester. And one thing that I am doing this year that I'm really glad I'm doing is a lot of extracurricular things that are kind of related to the course. So an example of that is the Student Managed Fund. So I would recommend any prospective students that are interested in accounting and finance to consider joining it. Just this Saturday gone, I was in Trinity College at a competition with the Student Managed Fund, and it was organised by a university in Toronto. And there was universities from all over the country and the UK as well, so it was really good. And yeah, it's really good.
No, and that was one of the things I saw. So well done on that, David. I was kind of giving it the usual thumbs up on LinkedIn when I saw that come through. So it was really good. And in terms of kind of like, I suppose if you said to you, what are your favorite subjects, then what have been your favorite subjects? Because there's an element here of kind of, I guess there's two things. One, there's an expectation you're going to like all subjects. We've had this joke before where you mightn't like all the subjects, even though they're important for you to study. But I suppose if you could talk about that is a kind of factor of any university course, that you'll have to cover some studies that are important, but you may not like them, but then you will cover subjects that you will like. So maybe talk about those two aspects.
Exactly. So in 4th year, a lot of the subjects that you do are electives, so you can choose subjects that you're really interested in. So I chose a lot of sort of finance-oriented modules, but I have friends that picked other ones. In the earlier years, it's a case of kind of trying a lot of different things. Like you get exposed to a lot of different modules in the earlier years. There's kind of law, there's information systems, there's finance as well. And then you can kind of narrow it down then as you go along. So yeah.
No, it's and like, I suppose if I had to say it, that's kind of just interested just for myself, is what would it be? What are your favorite subjects? And don't say mine now, because I'll see this straight away, like if that pops up. But in general, what have been your favorite subjects? And is there anything that surprised you as becoming a favorite?
Yeah, so my favorite subject is it's a subject that I'm doing in 4th year called entrepreneurial finance. And that module is really, really interesting because almost every week we get a guest speaker in that speaks for half of the lecture. We had Ger Gould from Kernel Capital, so that's a venture capital firm. We had David Swinburne from Forvis Mazars. We had Pat Lynch, who's a serial entrepreneur. And hearing their kind of insights has been incredibly interesting. And part of the assessment for that module is you have to come up with a startup. So it kind of ties in with a lot of what the guest speakers are talking about. So it's really interesting and really kind of applicable to your future career as well, which is important. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fantastic because I know Dr. Emer McGeown, who runs that module, again, really good contacts that she can just ring up basically people and ask them to come in and give these guest lectures. And no more than myself, we have a guest lecture coming to my final year next week to talk more about kind of careers and stuff. I suppose if you'd say to yourself then, like, that on the program, if you reflect on the last 4 years, you've obviously grown in that time and kind of matured and kind of changed how you worked. And I suppose what might have been a very challenging aspect of that program, and then can you kind of talk about how maybe you managed it a bit better as the years went on?
Absolutely. So I never did accounting for a leaving cert, so that was probably the most challenging thing in 1st year. A lot of my classmates were kind of well ahead of me in that, so I kind of had to catch up on that. But the best thing for me from the program has been the work placement, because that kind of gave me like a really, really good focus into kind of how a lot of the stuff you learn is used like in a practical setting. And it kind of gave me a lot of direction in a way, and helped me grow a lot. So that was my favorite part, I think, of the 4 years.
No, and you know what? It's almost as if I've planted this question because you said you didn't do leaving cert accounting. So like
Yeah.
this is one of the
Yeah.
questions that's come in the Q&A is about that. So I'll kind of come
Yeah.
back to you in a minute. And I guess, you know, like David, it's like all things here, you know, it's all working out well in the end here because I'm doing rapid fire questions with you just as a current student. If you to go back to leaving cert then and just say like one thing, would you say anything different? Say let him off, he's doing fine, or what do you think you would say just as a comment or so, or something to point out to your younger self?
I would say be very kind of open-minded, like with the future. Like there's so much things changing now in the world of accounting, and like you were saying yesterday, like even after you do your 3.5 year grad program, the role you'll be doing afterwards, it varies so much. So I would say keep a very kind of open-minded mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. And one of the things I really like, because it linked in with Michael's earlier comments about, you know, the extracurricular activities you're involving yourself with.
Exactly.
And like,
Yeah.
you know, Michael, I suppose just coming back to you on that is, look, you do need to get a certain level of performance, right, on the degree. But you know, those extracurricular things, they do stand out, don't they? Like, you know, again, just to tell students about that like it's not just, even though the accounting degree is recognized, and it can give you a good start, I think, is what you said. There's a bit more to it than that as well, that you should enjoy college life, I guess we're kind of saying, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you a good example. I founded a Golf Society in Deloitte. There was not in Deloitte Cork. There was already one in Dublin. I founded it, as you're probably not surprised by, Mike. But
No.
so like that, it just all feeds into it. Like anything on your CV that's just extra. Where you play soccer, you play sports, you play instruments, music, anything at all. Like we'll take that all on board. It just shows that you're get out there, get out and about. And as I said, it's all about your personality at the end of the day. Like because you want someone who can fit into the culture within the firms. Because at the end of the day, you guys will probably never have an opportunity where you're going to be. It's kind of like going into college again. You're going in with a bunch of maybe 20 or 30 students who are your own age, which is a phenomenal opportunity. And again, like they will become some of the best friends you will make, and friends for life. So yeah, just take the opportunity and grasp it with both hands if you get it.
And I think, look, Jamie, I'm just going to kind of say that we were going to take a 5-minute break, but I feel we should just we've a load of questions after coming in. We should just jump straight into those. Jamie, I don't know, will we take 2 or 3 minutes, or just what you feel?
No, I don't mind, Mike. Will be I haven't hardly looked at them really. Yeah, okay.
No, there's a good few coming in. So I think what we'll do is, being the pure accountants, we'll just drive on through it. Like, do you know what I mean? So one of the questions came in is, interested in doing accounting, but didn't study accounting for the leaving cert. I'm going to answer this myself, and then I'm going to go to David. Where, look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who come into the accounting degree who've done leaving cert accounting. It would be, I cannot say that doesn't make a difference, because it means that you've done preliminary work, so you're in a better position. That said, a lot of the first year accounting is covering the concepts covered in leaving cert, so there's definitely huge space for you to kind of develop the knowledge you need. But rather than, given my position as program director, probably a lot of guys will be saying, well, of course you're going to say that, Mike. So David, I guess thinking back into first year and advising that student, one, it's possible, and just maybe give your impression of that. But two, would you say, like, what extra would you say that, look, see how you get on the course first, that actually saying I'll do preliminary work, it's like, well, maybe just focus on your leaving cert and getting the points now, or what kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, so it is hard when you're in first year, because there's a lot to learn. So the advice I would give is, as well as studying for the basic accounting modules, there's textbooks you can get, like basic accounting textbooks, that will kind of supplement that. Try and, if you can, allocate more time to those accounting modules, because they are so vital. And yeah, I'm not going to say it's not hard, because it is, and it is a big jump in first year. But it is possible. So yeah, just try and kind of learn a bit more than what the module is. Try and go above and beyond what the module is kind of requiring you to, in a way.
And we do try to support people who haven't covered Leaving Cert Accounting before. We would say, look, again, that you will have a bit more work than anyone else. But then by the time you get to second year, it kind of all levels out then. I think everyone is on a, I suppose, Isabel, would I come back there and say that, like, by the time second year comes around, and I know now it's kind of a bit more memory on this, but first year is almost like I find that second year is when students see the biggest jump, that there's a big change in what they're doing. There's a big refocusing on like newer topics, more complex topics. Would that have been your feeling, Isabel? And maybe talk about, different people maybe would have relied on Leaving Cert Accounting, and maybe that would become a bit exposed in second year. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely, because I think like my perception, or like other people as well, I'd say when you go in, you think it's just going to be like what you did in Leaving Cert Accounting. And that's definitely like the case. Like you would see things that you would have done in Leaving Cert in first year, definitely more the kind of fundamental stuff. And you get more of a grounding on that. But then definitely in second year, you start kind of newer topics, like, you'd have consolidation with yourself, or you might have law, or kind of a load of other things that you wouldn't even think would be in an accounting degree, but it's just so broad. So definitely you kind of, it is kind of tough, but like you definitely understand a lot more, and you get just a really good kind of foundation of a load of different areas of accounting that you wouldn't kind of have known about before.
And then, so someone is saying, I'm just running through the questions here. So can I also ask about the hours in the course? What does the timetable look like in first year? So you have 2 semesters, semester 1, which runs from September to just the start of December, and then semester 2, which runs from January to the end of March. You've got exams, you've got continuous assessments at the end of those. Okay. So typically what you do is you have to complete every semester. There's about 6 subjects you've kind of got to do. So you've got about 2 hours for each of those a week, but you also have tutorials. So on paper, it looks like there's 2 hours lectures per week is kind of what's scheduled, even though you'll have tutorials, there'll be different assessments, but there's a lot of work outside of that as well. I guess, David, coming back as a current student, is that something that is fair to say to people, that with the hours that there's a lot of balance and you can fit a lot in, but you are busy as well, aren't you?
You are, yeah. So in terms of tutorials, I have one every 2 weeks with law, and lectures. It's, as you said, sort of 2 hours. So that leaves a lot of room for self-study, which I think is a good thing. And it's busy as well, but
it's kind of one of the things I was kind of thinking here is where a lot of people, like, the workloads are similar across all first year programs, to be honest. Like that there's all that there's some easier subjects, some harder subjects, but again, there is plenty of time for kind of enjoying yourself too. And I think, Carmel, maybe kind of coming to you on that, it's like we come back to the whole thing of the workload is manageable. You can make time for so much else, because I think we focused on the possibilities, but there is a lot of enjoyment to be had from the college life as well, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. And I'm safe to say I never missed a night out over study anyway, but I got it done anyway during the day. And as well, plenty of time for extra activities as well. Like, I'd be involved in sport, and as I said earlier, farming at home. So there was time for everything. It's all about balance.
The next question that comes in then is, I'm from Kildare, that's okay. Are you all work placements in third year based in Cork? No, absolutely not. A lot of placement students go to Dublin as well, and even around the country. We've got, pretty much like anywhere where there's an accounting base. I think a lot of people tend to do placements in the cities with larger firms to get that experience, but we also have people who go abroad and do placements. We've got people who go on placements in smaller firms. So there's definitely no kind of Cork focus on it. It's pretty much like there's loads of opportunities, and we do have people on the course from kind of around kind of the greater Dublin area, kind of Kildare, Meath at the moment, and even North Tipperary, would you believe? So it's kind of again, there's so much flexibility on that, and that's the kind of thing too. If you do feel that there's a question we don't answer on this panel, the email address BSc Accounting at ucc.ie is always available. Myself and Jamie are monitoring that, and Brona as well, who's the program administrator, is looking after it too. So feel free to always give us a shout on that if there's any. There's no small question at this stage, given the choice that you're going to be making. Next one, Michael, I'm going to come to you on this. Do you ever feel, or do you ever feel AI threatens the jobs of accountants? There was an article in Forbes the other day that I read, and it's kind of what we've all kind of been talking about a bit, where AI won't replace accountants, but accountants that can use AI will replace accountants. I don't know what's the talk and delight at the moment.
It's what everyone's talking about everywhere. I would say there's no way it'll ever replace us, like as accountants. I would say it'll make our lives easier if you can use it properly. It'll certainly make our lives easier as a research tool, as a way to format data, as everything. There's so many different tools out there now that make our lives like way easier. So back when I was probably an intern at Co-op, there's a lot of ticking and bashing, we refer to it as, which is a lot of kind of manual work on Excel and whatnot. A lot of that is starting to move to kind of, that's done by AI tools and whatnot, which is really, really helpful. But at the end of the day, you're always going to need someone to sign off on that work. And the regulatory boards such as IASA, SEMA and CAIM and all those boards, I'm sure they won't accept an AI bot to sign off anytime soon. So I'd say we're safe for the moment.
And I think it's one of the things I said at the open day to a lot, where people have, I suppose, what a lot of prospective students is, they have the ideas of maybe kind of thinking of accountants almost like the bookkeeper role, where they're doing very simple kind of accounting tasks. And they've yet to familiarize with the huge decision-making, human decision-making, and kind of the more advanced accounting. Michael, does that kind of make sense? Because obviously both of us from a similar neck of the woods, where we're kind of like, when you say accountant, I think people still have the idea of someone in the kind of the dark office scribbling on a book. And yes, that'll be replaced by AI, but the level of which professional accounting is done, that's not really going to happen, is it?
No, like, and again, you say the old kind of the old way an accountant was described. Like I would say I'm an auditor. Like it's not really like the kind of, we check accountants' work, so it's very high level stuff. And like I suppose, yeah, like, but you're still gonna have those small clients as well. So like I know for a fact in Deloitte that like not all clients are gone digital, that there still is those books and records that like you're going to need people to go through. That this still does happen. I'm sure it's the same in all other firms. Like those smaller clients, and especially like I know it mightn't be the same for Big Four, but for farm accounts and all that, like my parents are farmers as well. Like they certainly don't keep the digital records, so like that'll always be there. So yeah, like again, like things aren't going to change anytime soon, and you're always going to have, it's kind of that mix and match. Like I work in or financial services, where I'm working for funds that make billions and billions a year. Like, so that's obviously very different to like the smaller clients. But AI can be used as a very beneficial tool in all ways. And I just think, obviously, it's probably very prominent for students these days, but if you can use it properly and use it effectively to like guide you in the right path, especially for work as associates, and you're kind of coming to your managers then or whatnot with the solutions instead of the problems, like you can use it very effectively. And I'm sure it's probably the same for any assignments. If you're using it effectively as opposed to actually trying to rely on it too much, it can definitely be a benefit in every way, really.
So then the next question, so one of these, I know Jamie's typing the answers to these, but I'll run through them anyway. How many exemptions would there be for ACCA exams? So the accounting degree has all exemptions up to the mid-level, which is the applied skills level. So there's certain strategic professional exams that everyone has to do. The only thing I'm putting a big asterisk on ACCA at the moment, because they've just announced a huge change to their syllabus, okay? Which by the time you guys would come to do ACCA would be operational. But I would promise you this, that when that change comes, I can tell you that the BSc Accounting will have the most exemptions possible of any degree. Okay, we've always had that for ACCA. I can guarantee you now we'll continue to have it as well. But there's a lot of change going on with their syllabus at the moment. So I'm just kind of, when I tell you what exemptions we have, I'll be like, there's no way that's going to be the way it's going to be in the future, but I'll say like the max exemptions that a degree can get, we'll get them. We've answered the AI question. How long does it take to complete the Chartered Accountants exams after you complete the degree? Now, this is something I really want to big on, because this came up a good bit on the open day, guys, and I'll kind of come to Becky on this one. Becky, I'm just priming you for this, right? A lot of people see the 3.5-year training contract as a long time. Now, if you do a master's, it becomes 3 years, but we won't focus on that. We'll talk about 3.5-year training contract. I've really said to people, like, that's your apprenticeship. That is basically where you're earning your passport, you're earning your credibility. Whereas when I talk to a lot of prospective students, they're like, oh, 2 years seems a long time. I suppose 2 questions, Becky, or 2 things to clarify. I would never have thought that 3.5 years seems a long time. And it's part of what makes us who we are then as well, that we've had this training. And I think I keep trying to kind of impress that on students or prospective students, but maybe would you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I think definitely the first thing I would say is it absolutely flies. It absolutely does fly. And I think the other thing that you kind of said there about it kind of making us who we are, could not agree more. I think you don't even realize it really until you're working through that grad role. You are still learning so much. And when you come out of college, you are still so fresh into the career. Yes, you are a highly qualified individual at that point, but there's so much about actually working and how you work and how you are as a professional. That all really gets developed in that time. And it kind of really makes you who you are as a professional. You'll have your exams and you'll have kind of all the technical knowledge that you bring from college, but it's not until you start working that you really kind of figure out, okay, what's my working style? What does my day-to-day look like? What's my work-life balance? And it's so important, I think, to actually have that time. And like it's our equivalent of an apprenticeship. And then by the end of it, one of my directors turned around to me last week and he said, okay, you're nearly at the end of it. You're a Jedi accountant now. And he was like, it just was one thing that I kind of had a giggle at. And I was like, it is so true. You think when you come out of college, you're ready to go and you know everything and you're absolutely God's gift to the world of accounting. But it's only really when you get through that training contract that you're like, okay, I can kind of see it now. Now I know who I am. Now I know how to kind of do the job.
Yeah, no, and it's and I think it's just trying to emphasize that to people that like it's all about putting on that bulletproof vest from a professional perspective. Like that, once you have that chartered accountants qualification from an industry, from a career perspective, you've got such a strong foundation. One question, Jamie, I'm actually, 2 of us will answer this one. Is it better to take a gap year and go to work for that year after secondary school, or is it better to go straight into college? And then what advantage does leaving cert accounting give me? We've already covered that, but the first part of it, I would say, great question, on the basis that you need to base this based on what kind of maturity level you have, right? I think. Because Jamie, I think there's people that could go straight into accounting now. They know how to do the work. They're good. They're ready for university. They've got the discipline, okay, that they can, as I said, as Carmen is saying, they'll never miss a good night out, but they'll still pick up the work on the side. What I notice is there's just people, they come in and they just go buck ape in the first year and they just kind of, they burn the candle at every end. They blow up the candle, okay? And a lot of it just has to do with their maturity level. What I find sometimes, the guys that have done a bit of work and have taken the gap year, they do come back with a different head on their shoulders. I think it's a very personal decision, Jamie, isn't it?
Yeah, I tried to answer that and I couldn't. It's such a personal decision.
Yeah,
I don't have any perspective on it. Like, because what do you say to someone who's coming out and making those decisions? I guess it's very hard to make that decision. I think, yeah.
Yeah, because like I know, like, and I'm just speaking from personal perspective. I started college when I had just turned 17, and it was, in hindsight, it was a bad decision. I mean, I wasn't ready for that at all. Like, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, sure, I was just let loose onto the world way too quick. So I always kind of think that, like, it just being a bit more mature, being a bit older, people kind of think it's a race. But sometimes you've got to be in the position to run that race. You're trying to get ahead, but sometimes one extra year taking a kind of focused, it might help reframe. It really comes down to a personal decision. And then it's saying the next one, is the following true? It's probably not if someone starts with that, but let's go anyway. I have been told that I can't move abroad to work as an accountant. No, you can. Because I would need to take the residence country's exams. No, you can definitely move abroad. So Chartered Accountants Ireland has reciprocal agreements across the world. So America, Australia. Now with America, with CPA, there's 1 or 2 conversion exams, but a couple of my colleagues over there have said, look, if you're moving over to America, like these won't be any problem. Michael, I'm trying not to land you with anything here, but do you know anyone that's done that, gone over and become a CPA? I know 1 or 2 people that have said it was fine, but I don't know if you've noticed anyone. No. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people I know went to America, but I think given the whole political situation at the moment, Australia's trending at the moment instead, like, you know.
And London as well, more recently.
So with London, like straight away, even though London's a great example, even though they're no longer in the European Union, they just recognise Chartered Accountants Ireland as there's a good society over there. It's the Chartered Accountants Ireland London Society, and if you do go to Australia, your professional qualification is recognised. I mean, so I'm just going to say to you, that's absolutely not a big issue at all. Do the Big Four that the UCC students do the 6 months placement with offer? Yeah, so in general, a lot of guys that do the placement get offered positions after when they're doing the placement. Obviously, you don't just get handed it, like you have to work well while you're there, but at the moment a lot of people do get an offer of a graduate contract. Like I would say most students would have some offer when they leave. Now they don't have to take that offer. Again, people might take the offer and then still explore other opportunities. But at the moment, what we're finding is it really is the students' market at the moment. It really is in terms of opportunities.
I might just come in there, Mike. I've noticed recently that 90% of our Associate 1 starting are coming from internships and co-ops. 90% of them plus even. I don't like this year in audit, in financials, or in audit. I don't think we've any milk rounds, which is our first time in a long time. So that just goes to show if you get in the door early in your internships and co-ops, and you could be there for life.
I suppose that's the thing. Like, look, it is back to the whole thing of we do get prioritized. I think the accounting degree, it's fair to say, like, does stand out more on CVs than other degree programs. So you're more in line for those positions. It's easier to get the internship, so it's easier to get retained. You know, for students wishing to specialize in sustainability accounting or ESG auditing, would you recommend any particular elective choices, modules? Okay, so tongue-in-cheek, what I'd say is nobody even knows how to do that at the moment, so I think trying to teach it is even harder. Now, I'm kind of saying it tongue-in-cheek. It's a huge developing area, okay? We're changing our program at the moment where we're adding kind of modules where we do cover sustainability. David, I cover sustainability. I think you're kind of finding this out much to your kind of dismay this year, where we've had one of your questions on the exam maybe on sustainability or maybe not, but it is one of those areas I think that you don't need to do anything different for yourself at the moment. Once you're on the accounting degree, it won't be an elective choice. It would be a core module, because sustainability is so important to what we do at the moment. We want our accounting students to go down that road. But I would say kind of just, Michael, bring you back in on that. That's kind of one of those things. It's such an evolving space right now. It's not really reached steady state yet, has it?
So we actually started hiring a position for an ESG associate. Now I don't have the detail on this, but with the omnibus, I think it's pushed out another couple of years before companies have to report on it. So that is, I suppose, kind of delayed it slightly, but there's no doubt about it that it's coming full. That is definitely coming in the pipeline. And again, I think I'm not sure if they're hiring for it this year, but I'd imagine they will be in the next couple of years. That there will be a position or two in each intake that goes specifically to an ESG audit role.
Yeah, and like, look, with the connections we have with accounting industry and practice, if we need to start covering stuff, we will. And, we can see it that a lot of us have been dropping that. Jamie, like, we've been doing that a lot in the program at the moment, dropping in, kind of evolving the program. I know in first year you were introducing a bit in sustainability as well.
I think we're always having these discussions, aren't we, Mike, about it, and I think even for a lot of us on the degree, I think we're like, it's something I research, actually, kind of the more sustainability side of things. So it's like something that I even do with the students, where I suppose we actually talk about the limitations in that respect of accounting, and then how it's expanding, and look at some of the newer tools that have come into for the accounting profession. So that's the thing about the degree. I mean, we're constantly, like, you may think sometimes, you think, you know, in college these these lecturers are sitting around or in these, you know, leather sofas doing nothing. We're constantly having these discussions about how we can reflect what's happening in accounting. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
So no, as I said, yeah, no, well, definitely no letter sofas around, but there's, you know, it's, we do our best. So is there a good employment rate coming out from the course? The employment rate is pretty much like as high as you can get. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's anyone who's got a higher employment rate coming out of the degree program at the moment in terms of UCC. In specific Cork, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities in Cork, but if you want to be in Cork, like obviously there's a competitive aspect of this where you have to get good results, and there's obviously other people want to get there. But the last couple of years, I think if you really wanted to get to Cork, I think the option has been available for you. You know, I don't know, Jamie, kick in here if I kind of say anything.
Sorry,
kind
I'm
of,
silent.
yeah.
You're replying to some things, but you're probably
No,
going
no,
through
no.
these
Yeah, I
one,
can
yeah.
see it there.
Yeah.
And then
Where are
what
we
would
at?
the class sizes be like? I guess, Isabel, this is just something like that I find is really good, that like we've a class size of about 70 at undergrad. I think it makes a huge difference to the students in terms of getting to know people and just even getting to know the lecturers a bit, or having some kind of better connection. Like, I think that class size has been really, really good for us. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree definitely, because you would hear other people in other courses like commerce, whatever, like even say in the masters, it's obviously a smaller class size, but some people who would have done commerce, they're like, oh, there was other people in the masters who were also in commerce, but they were like, sure, I've never seen them before, never come across them. Whereas all of us in the BSc Accounting, like you would know everyone at least to see, or you know, like everyone does know each other, and it definitely makes it easier kind of going through the course. You can have people to bounce off, that kind of thing. You're kind of going through it together.
And then there's another question: is there less exemptions for CAI than ACCA? No, broadly, like it's very hard to answer that question based on how the exams are structured. Because what I would say to you at the moment is it might look like you get more exam exemptions for ACCA, but you actually have to do about the same number of exams. So don't just look on how many exams, because the two qualifications are structured very differently. Right now, I would say that I need to think very quickly on my feet here as I come through this one. It's about the same amount of exams that are left to cover. But please, if there is a ACCA, CI questions, please kind of email them into bscaccounting@ucc.ie, and I can give you a more detailed answer. That's just a very tough one to talk about, because they're not comparable as much as you think. Do you know, apart from Australia and America, does the same apply in Europe? Yeah, I don't know, guys. Is anyone on the panel has that experience? Generally, when you go abroad working in, they look for a professional accounting qualification, and the chartered qualification has never been any issue as far as I'm concerned in Europe anyway. You got to remember as well, in other places in Europe, you don't even need a professional accounting qualification. So I do a lot of research work in Spain, and even over there, a lot of guys who go into accounting there's no such thing as a professional accounting qualification. Like, chartered accountancy is very, like it's not every country even has it. When we're graduating, will we have access to all the exemptions? That's the plan. That's the big news we're hoping to have for next year. So that, like, you know, but as I said, watch this space, obviously, because it's a huge thing that needs approval by the regulators and all, you know, chartered accountants. It's something that we're working very hard and getting the support of all the accounting firms as well to kind of make sure that we have that, you know. But our current goal, and we've been clear about this, is we're trying to get all the exemptions by the time the next academic year commences. So by September 2026, we're trying to have full Cap 2 exemptions in the program. We can't promise it, but we are saying we're doing everything we can to get that, you know.
Would you add in there, Mike? Sorry, just about the exemption.
Yeah.
Sorry, very quickly. Just because some people may be under an illusion like that. Like, again, when you come into the degree, in any accounting degree you do in Ireland, you do get exemptions, but you don't just get the exemptions. Like, you do have to get certain grades to get the exemptions. But like, most students do get those grades, but you're not going to ever have a degree where you do the degree and you just get the straightforward exemption. So just for prospective students to be aware of that too. Yeah.
Another question then, we're coming to just two more questions. Would the modules you cover through the course link into what you're doing in work placement? I suppose, David, it's indirectly, because it depends on where you do your work placement, doesn't it? Like, but there's direct relation and there's indirect relation, isn't there? It's almost like people think that you have learned exactly what you're going to be doing in your job, whereas sometimes that can be the case. I know with like auditing and stuff, we've auditing modules, but a lot of it then is a kind of indirect as well. Do you want to just address that?
Yeah, so like Michael, I worked in the financial services sector in Deloitte up in Dublin, and you wouldn't learn a lot about you. There's an auditing module, as you said, but a lot of it is when you're sitting in lectures and you see things being explained, you have an extra kind of lens, like, oh, I remember seeing something like that in placement, and it kind of it's very indirect, as you say, and it's just great to have that professional perspective to a lot of the concepts, and the placement definitely gives that. So yeah,
there's almost like this holistic fit, and I suppose kind of coming in, Carmel, does that make sense to you as well? Like that it's not just here's how this module ties, because people can go off doing very, very different roles. So it's kind of like there's a lot of indirect relation, and sometimes there's direct. I mean, some people work in tax. We cover a lot of tax on the program, but it kind of just really depends, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's just it. And as you say, every job is different as well. So it all depends, and you learn a lot as you go as well, and about the work systems as well. Obviously, you wouldn't be learning them in the course, but yeah, it's all helpful anyway.
Cool. No, and I suppose then we're down to one thing. So to get access to the exemptions, what results would you want to be getting? I'm going to say this, Michael D can kind of kick in with this one as well. Look, at the end of the day, right, across the program, you need to be hitting a 60% average, which is like a second class honors grade 1. That's putting you in the bar of kind of being considered for, like, that's kind of giving yourself a great scope to get jobs. And then for the exemptions, you need to get over 50% result in a load of individual modules. I'd honestly say for the time being, I wouldn't be thinking too much about that performance level. You should be able to reach it. If you come on to the program, that should be well within your sights. But Michael, I suppose not, again, talking too much about kind of Deloitte, but even in general terms, things are competitive still at the moment, and like that 60% average can be seen almost like as a bar for, it's just a minimum bar firms set, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Like, I mean, if CVs come across our desk with anything less than a 2-1, they won't get an interview. So a 2-1 will get you, a 2-1 in a good CV will get you in the conversation, get you an interview, and then let your personality do the rest, I think.
And it's very achievable, and obviously that's only applying to the larger accounting firms, because there's loads of other firms and industry positions that don't have that same kind of cutoff. But with the very large ones, they do, because there's such a demand to try and get into those. And then finally, would you be saying to go and do the chartered accounting after the 4 years? Would we be better off? It's at the moment there's that could change in the future. We're seeing a lot of change in that space, where there's people kind of looking at, maybe I've had past students of mine now who've gone off and done masters in finance. They're saying, look, I want to go down more of a finance route. We've people that have taken industry jobs where they're more technology focused. But again, for me, I would say the chartered accountant's qualification goes hand in hand with the degree. And again, I would come back to the single message I would have given at the start, that the flexibility of that qualification. So you get, like if you think of the path ahead, you do the UCC accounting degree, which is strongly, like again, really, really kind of a favorite program of a lot of the top employers, of pretty much anyone looking to kind of hire accountants or trainee accountants. Then you do the professional accounting qualification. Given the fact you've done the UCC accounting degree, you're generally, as Becky was talking about earlier, you're in a great position to hit the ground running there. And then once you're a qualified accountant, the world is yours basically forevermore. You've got a more choice, I think. Like even now with, people, I think everyone on this call, and obviously, I'm talking about the guys, even like say Isabel and David, who I'm, absolutely no shadow of a doubt will be chartered accountants, okay, in the near future. They will just have so much options and the ability to change. They might go down a route for 4 or 5 years and then switch that over. So look, we've covered an awful lot. I mean, I'm really, really impressed at the amount of questions that have come in, and, you know, some brilliant questions, Jamie. We're going to close it off there because we don't want to kind of wreck people completely, you know, like it's kind of, I think it's been great. I just want to say a huge thanks because, you know, we've had a great attendance now, and I know there's going to be, based on the feedback we got last year, so many people logged in last year to look at the recording afterwards as well. But just Michael, Carmel, Becky, Isabel, and David, thanks so much for coming on. Again, we try and maintain a close alumni network, and we really appreciate you guys kind of supporting us as we trying to you know, again, trying to promote the program that we're very proud of. So look, guys, we'll close off with that. Thanks so much for coming on this evening. And if you're watching the recording, thanks for the recording, for watching it. So again, please follow up BSc Accounting at ucc.ie. If you have any other queries, we're more than happy to answer them. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.